Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud, from The Raven of Zürich, the Memoirs of Felix Somary, by Felix Somary. Podcast read by Archie Henderson. In addition to my banking activities, I worked in the evenings on scholarly pursuits. I was, alas, unable to continue the studies in philosophy of science that I had begun in my first university year, in Marx's extraordinary lectures, since nobody dared continue them after Boltzmann had collapsed in the attempt. As I had done formerly in my student years, I frequented Sigmund Freud's home and often participated there in discussions among his closest circle. He was a master of penetrating insights and the most refined and intellectualized wit. As in the case with those who shed light on hitherto obscure areas of knowledge, he was something of an obsessive, but he could also be amusing in the most subtle fashion by contemplating the foibles of his students and even of himself. He was not responsible personally for the distortion of individual illuminating insights into a whole system of thought, nor for the many nonsensical aspects of present-day psychoanalysis. Vienna at that time was celebrated in operetta and travel literature as the city of love. Arthur Schnitzler had created the prototype of the sweet and available young girl, and had, in his La Ronda, Reigen, expanded the literary possibilities of this theme to the utmost. Weininger, my fellow participant in the philosophy lectures, had tried in his book Sex and Character to analyze the psychology of woman, and had been destroyed in the attempt. And now Freud extended the ideas of his colleague Breuer, who suffered perpetual migraine headaches, into the sexual sphere. The Viennese were uncomfortable with all of that. They did not readily take to analyzing the natural and the obvious. The Viennese loved without regrets and without complexes. The Oedipus complex, a meaningless concept since it is well known that Oedipus himself was quite free of it, seemed to them, as normal human beings, totally alien. They thought it absurd that an entire theory of life and love should now be erected on 7 French words, signifying that one always returns to one's first loves. Freud was, at that time, as underrated as he is overrated today. Like many another brilliant mind, he needed someone close to him who, out of every 10 ideas, would have thrown out 5, changed 4, and left only 1 unaltered. Thus, for example, on several seminar evenings, we discussed the notion that women wear their outer garments as a message to other women, but their underclothes for men. I said that this hardly applied to working class or peasant women, that in any event it wasn't very significant, and that the whole discussion was one more appropriate to the coffee house than the university, a view that was held against me long afterwards. But the 1 out of 10 of Freud's ideas that could remain unchanged was often a very great one. In the late 1930s, I met Freud, by then seriously ill, in London. And when I tried to cheer him up, he said, "My friend, one mustn't try to outlive one's body." I found Freud very disappointing. I was very wary of any extremes. For example, economics seemed to me only part of public policy, and to see it as the prime concern of government, I considered the great mistake of the past 2 generations. Accepting class conflict as the foundation of public policy also seemed to me to be totally one-sided. I tried using individual psychology as my point of departure, to investigate mass psychology and take it further than the Italian thinkers of the 16th and 17th centuries had managed. At the very start of that effort, I encountered another obsessive, Karl Marx. How fascinating is the one-sidedness of genius, and how devastating have been the results of such one-sidedness in its 2 most successful examples, Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud.